Welcome back, guys. This is my wife's 2023 XR 150. We bought this brand new, and one of the first things that I like to do whenever I buy a brand new motorcycle, or any motorcycle for that matter, is I like to go through it and check everything. Specifically, I like to check the suspension because most motorcycles are notorious for when they're assembled that the suspension does not have a lot of grease in it. And what can happen is over time is that moisture and condensation gets in there, and then it just starts prematurely wearing everything out. If you grease your suspension well and put lots of grease in it, it leaves no place for moisture to go. It's just going to make everything last so much longer. We're going to check the spokes to make sure that those are tight. We're going to go through this bike, and I'm going to show you everything that I do when I get a brand new bike to ensure that not only is it going to look good, it's going to last a long time, and it's just going to make maintenance that much easier down the road, and hopefully it's going to save us some money in the long run. Alright, first thing we're going to do is grease up this lower shock bolt. I've got the tire just barely dragging on the ground, so it should slide right out. I got a 17mm socket on this side and an 8mm Allen wrench on the bolt on the other side. Now, take a quick look and see. Yeah, look at that. Bolt dry. Has no grease on it at all. None. So what's going to happen is over time is that water is going to get in there and it's going to start rusting and it's going to start causing problems. So this is one of the reasons why we do this stuff. This is what I use for grease. It's just Bel Ray waterproof grease, and to keep it simple, I just cut a hole in the top and I use what's called a flux brush, and this is for plumbing. And then I can just lather this right up real good and put it all back together. I'm also going to pull out this little bushing because sometimes there's like some little roller bearings, which there are. Can you see those roller bearings down inside that lower shock mount? We're going to put some grease in there as well. Now sometimes you have to be real careful doing these because these little needle bearings on not just this bike but any bike will tend to kind of like potentially fall out if you're not careful. So you want to be careful about probing around inside there. And we'll put this back in. There. Wipe up your mess. Now we can put our bolt back through. We'll tighten it up, then we'll torque it. But you guys saw how dry that was. This is going to make that work a lot smoother for a lot of years down the road to come, and make it better for the next guy too. We'll torque everything at the end, and I'll give you guys all the torque specs. So I've got a 17mm wrench on the back side and a 24mm socket on this side. I haven't even moved the adjusters, and I don't plan to. I think this might have sealed bearings, but I don't know. We will take a look and find out more about it. Yeah, I think they are. Either way, though, we want to put a little bit of grease on this. A couple ways you can do this. You could take this nut off, or you could take it off down at the bottom. Okay. And while this is also out, we'll check this tire and wheel, make sure that it's balanced properly. I don't see any weights on it, so probably will need to be balanced. I was correct. These are a sealed bearing. I think you could probably pull this little lip out, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to mess with that at all. But we will check to make sure that this assembly is balanced properly. There's all kinds of videos on the internet about how to balance wheels, but I'm just going to show you briefly how to do it. So I'm not going to get too in depth. So obviously this is the heavy side because the wheel is going down that way. Then when I bring what I think is the heavy side towards me this way, it goes down this way. Eventually that will settle out somewhere right around there. Then what I do is I just take a mark and put a mark on the opposite side, because obviously if that's heavy here, that's light here. So I just mark the tread. Then I take an earth magnet, just a little tiny earth magnet, stick it right to the wheel in that same area that I just marked the tread, which is the light side. And then I just take some wheel weights and just stick them to that magnet. So now the wheel weights are right here, and that's not moving. I'll rotate it 180. That is moving this way, so it's saying it's maybe not quite enough weight on that other side, but I'd rather have it be not enough weight than too much weight. I'd rather err on the light side than the heavy side. So that looks pretty good right there. So we will peel the weights and call it a day. It's saying it could go a little bit heavier on this side as well. But I think that that is going to be pretty darn close. So that wheel is off roughly 3/4 of an ounce. And there we are, guys. Got the weights right here. And it's right still, no matter where you put it. That's not a whole lot of weight. It's only 3/4 of an ounce, but every little bit you get better is going to make it ride that much smoother and less vibration. So now that we know that the back wheel is all balanced, we'll get the axle shaft all greased up. We'll put that all back together. Then we'll do the same thing when it comes time to do the front wheel. We'll balance that, check it, grease it, everything. Now we can loosen up the swing arm. So we're going to have a 22mm socket on this side and a 17mm wrench on the other. We'll pull this bolt out and grease this swing arm pivot. That's dry too. Super dry. I think what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to remove this lower shock bolt and pull the swing arm all the way back just so I can get to it a little bit better. There's some hoses and stuff in the way, plus the chain's going through it, so I'm going to try not to pull it all off. But I just pulled off this dust cap and then just grab this sleeve right here and slide that right through. So you can see that there's some needle bearings down in there, so we're going to lubricate those needle bearings. They don't go all the way through, they're just on the ends. So we'll just put a little bit of grease on those needle bearings and slide that shaft back through, and then this will be all good. Now put a little grease inside the dust cap. That'll help seal out water from getting down in it. There. Now we should be able to slide the swing arm back up in the mounts. And the great thing is that we're doing this now, guys. This bike has never been washed. So it's never been wet, it's never been in the rain. It's getting coated before it's had any exposure to moisture, so this stuff won't rust up. You know, if you have a bike that you bought used from somebody and you don't know if this has been done, I would definitely go through it. Not only are you going to learn about your bike and, you know, just learn how to take it apart and how things work, it's going to make you familiar with it. You'll also be adding life to the suspension and all these components, because, you know, the factory isn't going to grease it as good as you're going to do it. It's all about dollars and cents, you know. We can tighten the swing arm bolt back up, and we can put the lower shock mount bolt back in it. Like I said, we will go over all the torque specs on this once we're all done. Now we can hook our spring back up. Now we can put our rear wheel back on. Now we're going to do a couple things over here. we're going to lubricate the axle for one, but we're also going to lubricate the adjusters. Now another thing we want to think about doing, these threads right here, these are inside the swing arm, so that's stuff that you're not going to even see or be able to get to. So to keep those from rusting and corroding, you can use Never Seez, you can use grease, whichever you choose. We'll check the chain tension, and if we need to adjust it, we'll back these nuts off and we'll put some grease or Never Seez under there as well. And we're also going to put a little bit right inside there, just to keep this so that it's always sliding smoothly within that swing arm. You don't need a lot, just light coating. So we'll slide that back in. Okay, we'll go put the adjuster in on the other side as well. It's going to do a real light coat because you don't want grease, dirt attracting to this, and we're going to wipe this all off after. And then to get that in that barrel, just push down on your brake lever and let it go back. There you go. We'll have to read what the free play is on this too, I don't know. I've got some torque values here if you're interested. The upper and lower shock mounts are 44 Newton meters or 32 foot-pounds. So I have metrics to the left and imperials to the right. So we're going to hold off on adjusting the rear axle nut because I think the chain might be a little tight. And I also have those for you as well. So we're going to go over all this. This will be a super detailed video. So for you guys that also have one of these, you don't have to kind of flip through your book. You've got it right here. So we're going to do the lower shock mounting bolt. That's 32 foot-pounds. And we'll do the swing arm nut. That's 65 foot-pounds. Alright, I've moved the bike back to give us some room, moved it out of the cradle, moved the jack forward, so it's jacking it on the lower part of the frame. I got that jacked up, and then I just got a couple straps around the lower triple clamps, and I've got just the tire just barely touching the lift. Now we can back off the nut on the other side of this, pull the axle out, do the same thing to this side that we did out back. The nut on the left side is 19 millimeters and the wrench is 14. Pretty dry too, as you can see. That's the Speedo drive. This axle is a little bit smaller, this inside diameter, so I have a small axle that I've used just for doing smaller bikes, and I have it set up for this stand. Although it doesn't have the centering cones, you really don't need it. It works just fine, guys. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, guys? I'm going to put a silver mark on it so you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit better. See that silver mark right at the top? Now to get a rough idea of how out of balance this is, so it seems like quite a bit because you see how fast that's going up? And we'll try that there. So again, the heavy parts wanting to sink to the bottom. So I'll do the same thing. Grab my little magnet, put it right below my little silver mark, and see if I can find some weights. Here's a couple right here. We'll add that onto it. See how that does. Okay, look how fast that's going up. So that definitely needs more than two. Watch, that'll rise up. Those two magnets. So let's see if I've got four. Okay, I got a 4-pack right here. Let's try that. Huh, still needs more weight. But we're getting closer. See, that wants to go up. So I'm guessing that's probably 5. So this is 1.25 ounces of weight that I'm putting on it right now. See how this does. Okay, so we'll put it over there. That's it right there, guys. And I know it may not seem like a lot or that much of a big deal. You can see it's probably still a little bit on the light side, but like I said, I'd rather have it light than heavy. That this will make a difference. And you know, if you have less vibration and less shimmying, that's less fatigue. That's less problems you're going to have in your hands, and it's just going to make riding that much more enjoyable. So yeah, we're good. That's where we're going to put it. So now, because that silver mark is right there that I made, now I can pull off my weights, I can pull off my magnet, and I can just spray the wheel with some contact cleaner right where that silver mark is, so that we know that our adhesive will stick from the magnets. I mean, from the wheel weights. See, look at that again, guys, without the wheel weights, how just kind of, where is the silver? Right here. So this silver mark's right here. Now it's at 3 o'clock, watch. Wants to just rise right up quick. There. Just press them in real nice. Now we'll try it again. So now we got the wheel weights on it. Let's bring it over to 3 o'clock. That's good. See how the wheel's just staying right there, nice and steady? We'll bring it over to 9 o'clock. Stop it. Wheel just pretty much stays right there. It's actually a little light, if you notice how it's wanting to drag down on this side. Just a slight movement, but not a big deal. So we've got our front wheel all balanced, all slid back in. Again, those are sealed bearings on the front, so you can't really do a whole lot there. And the front axle nut gets torqued to 32 foot-pounds. And we're just going to quickly check the spokes. I just use a punch, or you can use a screwdriver or anything. Just spin the wheel and listen for the sound. See how they all sound pretty much the same? That'll let you know that they're all torqued within the same torque specs. And you can go over the other side, do the same thing. So you don't hear anything that sounds off tone. I've done the same thing with the back, so we're all good there. The brake, rear brake free play is 15 to 25 millimeters or 9/16 to 1 inch. And that is how much this moves. So because we messed with this adjustment, I wanted to give you guys what that was. So the other thing that we could do, guys, is we could grease the steering stem bearings. That's not a big deal. We could do it, but I don't believe it's probably going to need anything. Now, with that said, if this was a motocross bike, I'd probably say yes, especially if you're going to be using a power washer a lot because you're driving that water down in there. For this, right now, we're not going to do that. This probably will never get in the rain, and we don't use a power washer very often. But what I will do is this winter, when I bring this in, or next winter I should say, and pull the valve cover to check the valve adjustment, I will grease the head bearings then and do a bunch of other maintenance. But I won't have to do the suspension, the axles, or any other thing. But I do want to check the drive chain because I feel like it might be too tight. And that's supposed to be 20 to 30 millimeters or 13/16 to 1 inch and 3/16, and you do that on the side stand. Look at that chain. That chain's wrong. That's way too tight. So we're going to loosen up these adjusters and we'll adjust it right. That's why, again, guys, just because you bought it from a dealer doesn't mean that it's right. It's always a good idea to check everything over, especially the important stuff. You know, like your axle, your pinch bolts for your forks. I've already just put a wrench on these just to check them to make sure that they're tight. Those are safety issues. So just check anything that looks like it could be a safety concern. But yeah, that's too tight. That's going to cause problems. To loosen these adjusters, you're going to want a 12 millimeter and a 14 millimeter wrench. And now we're just going to back this off just a little bit. You can see I've already backed off both sides. Look at that. That's way better. Just remember, you're better off having your chain a little too loose than a little too tight. A little too tight, you start breaking stuff. If you got to go one way or another, definitely go to the looser side than the tighter side. Then if you see right here, you've got some lines in that adjuster. You can use those lines against that opening on the swing arm to see that you're in proper alignment. They also make a tool. I have one. By Motion Pro, and it kind of clips onto the back sprocket. Maybe I'll show you that too. That seems pretty decent. Let me just snug this up and see how that looks. Yeah, that's way better. See that now? Before I couldn't even do that. And then this is where the manual tells you that they want you to measure it pretty much between the two sprockets, so halfway up your swing arm. So you've got your up movement, record that measurement. Then your down movement, record that. I'm closer to the outer limit than I am to the tighter limit, but I think the manual says you can drive it somewhere around like 2 inches out, or don't exceed like 2 inches, so we're well within that. Now we can torque the rear axle. That's got to go to 69 foot-pounds. Or 93 Newton meters. And this is that other tool I was telling you about for making sure that your chain is aligned properly. I don't really use it. I do on my street bikes. I actually use a straight edge on my street bikes, but I'll show you how it works. I don't even know if you're going to be able to see it, but you kind of use it like a straight edge. Can you see down the top of that beam, and you're kind of like aligning that with the chain? That's kind of what you're trying to do to make sure that that pointer is the same alignment as your chain. I don't know how it looks on your end, basically on how I'm holding the camera, but it is in perfect alignment, so that's good. But that's just another tool I wanted to show you. Another thing I like to do is have a nice smooth clutch cable. So I take off the clutch cable and lubricate it. And then it's usually easier to do it down here than it is to do it up at the lever. And I'll tell you what, these Motion Pro lubricators are awesome. I'll show you how it works. So this goes on here like that. You want the tapered side facing you, or facing out in our instance here. Like that. And this just threads into it. And then it's easier to take and push right here and just push out on that. And that ejects that piece. Gives you more room for your cable to go in. Then just use whatever your favorite cable lube stuff is. Stick it in the end. And if you've done it right, it'll come out up top. It'll make a little mess down here too. And I can hear it coming out right now. And you should see that squirting out up there. There it is. And taking this apart is always, it always comes apart hard for some reason. There. Now, this cable will last a super long time, guys, because there's nothing that can interfere with this cable. It is filled with lubricant. And that's it, guys. Those are just some of the things that I do if I buy a new bike or I buy a used bike. I do everything that you just saw here. You could keep going and you could get as detailed and intricate as you wanted. I'll link a video in the description of my KTM 450. I took that down a lot further than this. I took all the levers out. I greased all the pivot points and all the levers. For this bike, which is going to be mostly street, occasional off-road, that'll be perfect. But if you want to do more, you can. Like I said, you could do the steering stem bearings, but for right now, this is going to be good. Then when we check the valves next winter, we'll probably bring it in the shop and we'll do the steering stem bearings and do a bunch of other stuff at that time. If this is something that you like, please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, guys. Until the next one, I'll see you soon.